The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NBA Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NBA from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NBA Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NBA.
The Phoenix Suns rout the Los Angeles Lakers in their first preseason game. What's real? What's a mirage? And has our expectations changed a little bit for the Suns team?
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast.
Was that fun? Was that fun? That was... it gets me so jacked up, right? There was a part of me, I try to take Friday nights and Saturdays off. Oftentimes, especially during football season, that doesn't happen. I do a lot more than just cover the Phoenix Suns. And the Suns played on Friday night. And I was so jacked up. I was this close to doing a post-game show. But I thought to myself, let's let me marinate on this game a little bit, get a level head about it, and see if I feel the same way about the Phoenix Suns that I felt on Friday. Or Friday night, I guess I should say. And needless to say, I do. Needless to say, nothing has changed on my opinion of the Phoenix Suns from Friday night to right now when I'm recording this Sunday afternoon. The Phoenix Suns absolutely decimated the Los Angeles Lakers. That game was never close. And in a sense, here's what the difference was. One team knows exactly who they are, and the other team has no idea. They're a hodgepodge of talent mixed together saying, Luka, you figured it out with the Mavericks. Figure it out again now. I know you're not playing in this game. LeBron James, you're old. This team is now headed more towards Luka Doncic, and the Phoenix Suns know exactly what they are. Exactly what they are. The Suns dominated that game. And no, it's not because they went 125 points. The opposing team couldn't stop them from making buckets. Guys, there were multiple instances in this game. Yeah, the Suns caught fire a couple of times, and that's great. And we'll talk about that in just a second. I don't even know if 30 minutes is going to be enough time to cover all the good things that we saw. But the Suns know exactly what they are. They are not an offensive team anymore with a collection of talent, firepower at will. We're just going to mid-range you to death. That is not what we saw on Friday night. What we saw was a team that plays gritty, will dive on the floor for loose balls, stifling defense, and that will then turn into offense the other direction. We're already going to get into the statistics of it all, and this is the nitty-gritty. This is the stuff that helps prove your point. The Suns had 16 total turnovers. 12 of those came before the third quarter. Obviously, that's what my notes say. And so what I will say is, that's a little bit of an issue, but I'm not super worried about that right now. Other younger players are coming in. Some of those guys aren't going to play. It's not a massive issue, so I don't want to dive into it. 22 turnovers, which is what the Phoenix Suns forced from the Los Angeles Lakers, is a massive deal. Listen, I get it. It's the preseason. Ben, you're overreacting. Sure. Totally fine. First off, it's the only, people keep on asking me, why do you keep overreacting? Because it's the only data I have right now. Let me see the games in China against the Brooklyn Nets in a couple of days here, and then we'll have more data to react to. But right now, this is all I have to react to. And what the Suns did is exactly what we wanted them to do. Come in, be a team that is suffocating defensively, set the tone. Every bucket the Lakers get is going to be earned. And the Suns are going to turn their mistakes into points the other direction. The Suns had 16 total turnovers. Not great. Again, a lot of those players did not, that committed turnovers late in that game will not be playing. The Lakers had 22 turnovers, and the Suns had 27 points conceded off turnovers. 19 fast break points to the Lakers 6. Oh, and what else did the Suns do to become a different version of themselves? The identity, if you will. Bigger, stronger, longer, defensive. 48 points in the paint to the Los Angeles Lakers, 22. And I don't want to hear, well, the Lakers didn't have Luka and LeBron. Sure, Totally a fair argument. However, that's not like the Suns were playing what was it? The team they lost 2 years ago, the 36ers, who play over in like Australia. That team had DeAndre Ayton, who Lakers fans told me was going to be the difference between title contenders and title hopefuls. And that team had Austin Reeves out there. Rui Hachimura is a fine player. They were not devoid of talent. I'd argue the talent was closer than you think. The Suns just wanted it more. And what I thought was so telling offensively was the consistent motion, players moving. Mike Budenholzer might need to be charged with a crime against basketball humanity in the, basketball sphere, because it clearly wasn't that difficult to get guys to move around. And seeing JJ Redick, I don't know if you watched the duration of that game, but Kevin Ray had said, hey, Dylan Brooks is going to talk after the game. And I was like, oh, let's see if he's got something big he's going to say. I want to see that. Immediately after the game ends, it wasn't even the Dylan Brooks interview, which was basically nothing. It was JJ Redick embracing Jordan Ott, and you could see visually impressed. Like, damn, this guy's got something rolling over here in Phoenix. He's embracing the identity. Here's JJ Redick after the game.
Look, the reality, and this is not an excuse, this is quite literally reality. They've had 19 guys in the gym all of September. They did their installs similar to how we did last year in September. They were able to get a lot of their installs in. They've had 7 practices. They're ahead of us from that perspective. They have more stuff in. I felt that more on the defensive end. They clearly have a lot of their concepts, schemes, all that stuff really tight. We just haven't had enough time. We will get there. I'm very confident.
Well, that's interesting. The team that was thrown together in the offseason has a bunch of different moving parts, is not as talented as the Los Angeles Lakers, came in and whooped your ass. But call it what it is. I know JJ Redick's a head coach and guys get fired all the time. He's not going to hit the panic button, especially in the media. The dude wants to keep his job. That's not me saying he's anywhere close to losing his job. That's not what I'm saying. My point is he's always going to lean on, I'm not concerned, because he doesn't need to drum up more concern in the media than isn't already there. The Suns whooped the Lakers' ass on Friday. It wasn't close. And you saw what JJ Redick said, and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. The Suns had 19 guys in the facility day in and day out working on their craft. They are not going to be able to lean on talent this year. Oh, we'll just, if all things fail, we'll just go to Kevin Durant and we'll just go to Bradley Beal and we'll just go to Devin Booker. Like, they'll make something happen. No, we're going to actually lean towards a real offense. And that's where my other point comes across. Damn, Jordan Ott was really impressive. Really impressive. Now, again, I'm going to say this again for the people in the comment section. Yeah, preseason. Totally buy into it. It could be nothing. But we could be on the Lakers side of things. Like, just let me just tangent sidebar really quickly. What if we were talking about the opposite? What if we were talking about, damn, man, Suns got all these new players, younger. They got a different identity, and they just couldn't show up. They couldn't make buckets. They were getting suffocated defensively against a Lakers team that didn't have LeBron or Luka. Like, that's concerning. Like, the Lakers have a built-in excuse. Their 2 best players didn't play. But still they're saying to themselves, damn, can DeAndre Ayton play? Were Suns fans right? I mean, he was terrible offensively. Yeah, he had a couple of blocks. Yeah, Ayton tends to do that against the Suns. He comes out, plays a better, tries to have a better performance. But even Lakers fans are like, I know he's better than Jackson Hayes, but does he try as hard? Like, that's the difference between the Suns and the Lakers right now. The opposing viewpoint, you'd much rather have what the Suns have, which is this what we're going to see?
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I like to bet in the moment. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in on the action live as it unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sunday. So are you Ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
Miami's first preseason game is in the books, and we break down what went right and wrong and why Nikola Jovic and Andrew Wiggins look poised to break out on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast.
The headline here, David, is Eric Spoelstra deciding to start Nikola Jovic over Kel'el Ware. It is something that we have discussed over the last couple of weeks, things trending in the direction of Nico earning the starting job, and that's exactly what happened. He signs the extension, and a few hours later, he's starting in Miami's preseason opener. And frankly, I thought he looked like Miami's best player in that game. He looked comfortable. The versatility was on display. He was making shots. He dished out a couple of assists. I thought he was doing all of the things that we wanted to see him do, right? We talked about him, we talked with him at Media Day and asked him about playing a little bit more physically, what he learned in Serbia, being able to play up tempo. There was a new up tempo offense that we'll also talk about here a little bit later, David, but he looked very comfortable in that. We started to see the duck-ins. We saw him punishing smalls. If all of this is where things are trending for Nico, it feels like he's poised for a breakout season.
Absolutely. He looked really solid and confident, and he just looked like he was moving with intent in a way that I don't know everybody else was. And you talk about the first preseason game, normally players will look a little clunky. Maybe they're not quite sure what their role is. They're a little hesitant. Maybe the body and mind aren't necessarily aligned to where they want to be. But he looks like he's in midseason form. And that's a great sign for Miami, because if that's the case, if he's able to look this solid in his first preseason outing, building off of what he did over the summer, then that really bodes well for what the rest of his season is going to look like. Because I think he was just doing everything that he's capable of at a very high level.
10 points on 3 of 6 shooting, 1 of 3 from three-point range, got to the line 3 times, made all 3 of those free throws, had 3 rebounds, 2 assists in the game. It was.
I want to quantify it to a certain degree. He looks, and we talked about this earlier in the week, everything we heard from him in Media Day, what we heard in the first week of training camp, we knew that the starting position was certainly on his radar and that he looked like he was positioned to take it. But how much of the starting nod do you feel is tied to the fact that they were able to start a bigger lineup with Jaime Jaquez in the starting lineup, because all of the guards are out, both Tyler Hero, Davion Mitchell. So your starters at guard positions, or your projected starter and Davion, both out. And then starting Jaime puts a little bit more size out there in the perimeter, so that maybe you can afford to go with Nico over, say, Kel'el Ware.
Yeah, so no Davion, no Tyler Hero, no Terry Rozier, no Pelle Larsson, and no Kasparis Jakachonis either in this game either. So basically all the guards except for Drew Smith were out. And so, yeah, Eric Spoelstra goes with Jaime Jaquez Jr. in the starting lineup. I don't think that had anything to do with it. Not in a preseason game. Like, you're not matching up that way. I think that he basically just started Jaime to reward Jaime probably for a strong training camp. It would be my guess. Yeah. But I do think that Nico starting next to Bam started to become more of a possibility once Tyler Hero got hurt. Because you need the shot making, you need the scoring. In terms of reading a ton into, well, Nico started the preseason opener in Puerto Rico. Is he going to be starting the regular season? Right now, I think things are trending in that direction. Again, Nikola Jovic, I would argue, has been the most impressive Heat player through training camp and in that first preseason game. And we'll talk about a bunch of these other players as we go on here, but he has very much earned this spot. Whereas we've heard from Eric Spoelstra talk about Kel'el Ware, and it's just not there. And then you hear what Eric Spoelstra has to say about Nico after the contract extension. So Miami announces the contract extension, makes it official, and then Eric Spoelstra has an opportunity to talk about it. And he's saying, like, he's earned this. It's been amazing to watch him mature over his 4 years. We drafted him and he was so young, and now he's so mature, and the work ethic and all of this stuff. Like, you know, he doesn't care about the injuries from the past because, again, Nico has earned this. Like, that kind of language, Spo just does not just throw around, as we know.
That's true. I'm a little surprised too, because you know, we know how Bam feels about it, the center position there, that he's tried to kind of get himself out of there. But I think you just a point we've made before about starting your best 5 players, and Nico is that. Like, he's just at a point right now where he's better and more impactful than Khalil Ware. Is there greater potential on Ware's side? Sure, but I think Nico is at a point now where he's kind of flourishing and he's comfortable. And like I said, I think the Euro basket tournament not only helped from a confidence and mental perspective, but he's just in game shape. He's ready.
Yep.
He looks it, and he's bringing that kind of energy and confidence to this training camp and preseason, and he looked really, really solid. So great vote of confidence for him, something that has always been a point for Nico, where he can kind of lose confidence in himself, but I think he's feeling it now, and the coaching staff is feeling it as well, and they've rewarded him as a front office by giving him the contract, so he's just free to do what he does best and play basketball at a high level. So I'm feeling great, to be honest with you, about his chance as continuing as a starter, because I think he just does look that good. To your point, I agree with you. I think he's been the best player in a Heat uniform based on everything we've heard and seen, and he just does look ready to. We talked about what an X factor he was to the season a couple weeks ago, and I think this is a great sign for Heat fans.
Yeah.
And I know, there will be your critics who will say, well, he's got to play healthy, he's got to stay healthy, he's got to be consistent. No doubt. You could say that about any player at the NBA level, like especially one who's competing for a starting job. But I think Miami's season really does hinge on getting something like that out of Nico consistently, because if he's healthy, he brings a level of dynamism, size, versatility that is missing from almost anybody else on this roster.
And we saw it go in that direction, right? Like with Miami clearly trying to also play more up tempo and play with pace, which was the other big takeaway from this game. Nikola Jovic fits in with that. He is right at home in that. And we talked with Nico at Media Day about taking those lessons from Serbia, playing a little bit more up tempo and snappier and a little bit more intuitive and free flowing and all this stuff. And man, I saw all of that. I saw all of it in the preseason opener. He was the duck-ins that we talked about. He was ducking in towards the basket in transition. He was ripping the rebounds and then pushing it down the floor. He was attacking smaller players. He was seeing them in the post and being like, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to establish post position. And what I loved about that, his teammates were looking for him in those instances. Now, it didn't always result in points. It didn't always, I don't really care about any of that. I don't care. I don't care that they lost this preseason game. I don't care. It's a preseason. Absolutely. Nobody cares. Right. I'm about the process over the results. And right now, it felt like Nico was so at home and so comfortable in what this was in the offense that Eric Spoelstra seems to be trying to put together, that I am doubly confident that it's Nico's starting job to lose at this point, because he's comfortable. It serves him in a way that the system doesn't really serve somebody like Khalil Ware in the same way, right? Like Nico kind of flourishes in this kind of system, but that was the other thing that stood. Go ahead. You made a great point about the teammates looking for him, because I don't think we've seen that. Yep. We've seen flashes of it here and there, but the fact that it's not just Nico's confidence or the coach's confidence, it's the fact that the teammates know what he's capable of and are looking for him to create opportunities for himself. I think that speaks volumes. That's how much faith they have in his ability and the knowledge that he can be dominant. And we're talking about a really big Orlando team that plays defense at a high level. Sure, they're missing a couple of players themselves. They're integrating Desmond Bane. None of that matters. Like, it's a preseason. Every team is going to go through some changes here and there. But the fact that Nico was able to do this against a really solid Magic group that plays defense at a high level, I think really speaks volumes that the teammates were looking to him and recognizing that he had those mismatches, something that we have not seen from them in the past. He had a beautiful step back 3-pointer in that game. He finished a play with a lob. He was running down the court. It was, again, just a tremendous game from Nico. One other interesting note here. Again, starters only really played the first half, and Bam and Nico played most of the first half, and Khalil got most of his minutes in the second half, although he did play a little bit in the first half as the backup center. But we didn't see any minutes of Bam and Khalil together. I thought maybe we'd see it for a couple of minutes, maybe at the end of the first quarter or something like that. Nope, none of that. I'm not reading too much into that, again, because the rotations were all weird. A bunch of guys were out. The starters basically didn't play the second half, so you were kind of just doing different things. But just one thing to note.
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I like to bet in the moment. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in on the action live as it unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
Ben Surratt headlined several noteworthy rotation decisions during the Nets preseason opener. I'll tell you why the rookie could be Brooklyn's starting point guard after this.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast.
No roster battle is more significant right now than the one between the Brooklyn Nets rookie point guards, and Ben Surratt gets the starting nod in this game over Nolan Traore. And we know Yegor Dioman is sidelined, has been dealing with that plantar fascia tear, and has not been able to play at training camp yet or do any contact work yet. So Ben Surratt gets the starting nod. And this is pretty significant, I think, given Yegor Dioman's injury situation, because Yegor, we're now, this is October 5th now. We're now like 2.5 weeks away from the preseason or from the regular season opener, and Yegor has not done contact work. And we heard from Sean Marks at Media Day that they don't have any concerns about Yegor missing the regular season opener or missing regular season games. And I said when I did my pod reacting to that any Nets injury update now I take with a grain of salt. And I don't read too much into, what Sean Marks are actually saying or anybody from the Nets. And Yegor Dioman, 2.5 weeks out from the regular season opener, having not done contact work, I'm not all too confident that he is going to be ready for the regular season opener. I would say it's trending in a direction where that may not be the case. And if that is not the case, Ben Surratt could be the Nets starting point guard come opening night over Nolan Traore. And, just looking at what Surratt did in this game, I'm not going to focus too much on any of the guys I talk about, what they did on the court, whether they struggled or played well, because, the competition that the Nets were playing in this game, I would say it was not very high level. I would say it was a far cry, obviously, from NBA competition. But looking at Surratt, he played 18 minutes. He had 9 points on 4 of 6 shooting, knocked down his only 3-point attempt. And most importantly, he had 6 assists and 1 turnover. Looked really good handling the ball and being a decision maker. He got in foul trouble early, had 4 fouls in his first 8 minutes, but he finished the game a team best plus 25. And I thought he looked good from all accounts. And him getting the starting point guard nod here over Nolan Traore should not be all that surprising after what we heard, leading up to this. There was a banging of the drum and a Ben Surratt hype train dating back from the Nets open runs in the offseason, going into the media day, into training camp. A lot of players have said that they are impressed with him. And I did a podcast, talking about that last week. And, it's not all that surprising, because I think when you look at Ben Surratt and Nolan Traore, Ben looks like the more NBA ready player. And we heard Sean Marks say this at Media Day. He said that of the Nets rookies, Ben is probably one of the ones who's more ready, NBA ready to play right now. And I thought that you could see that on the court. You look at what Nolan Traore did in this game. He didn't play poorly by any stretch of the imagination, played 18 minutes, had 7 points, 2 assists, 1 turnover, 2 of 6 from the field, 1 of 3 from 3. But I think when you look at Ben and Nolan on the court and you look at the way they're operating, I think that Ben looks like the more NBA ready player from numerous standpoints. First, just the physicality in the body. We saw this with Ben when he played for Razio Far last season, and also at Summer League. He is a physical player, a physical driver, a guy who's 6'6", legit 6'6", and 200 pounds. And, you look at Nolan Traore, it's a little bit of a slighter frame, obviously. 6'4", still has really good height, really good length for a point guard, but weighs 175 and is going to have to add a lot of muscle to his frame. And in that regard, Ben Surratt handling the ball, being able to get downhill, being able to bump defenders off their spots defensively, I think also being able to guard point guards and then guard up also. I think he can do that better than Traore right now just because of his size and his mass. So that is pretty obvious on the court. And then from a decision-making standpoint, I think that Ben just looks a little bit more polished right now as a ball handler, as a passer, as a decision-maker. We saw Ben make some really good passes in this game and be able to get downhill, playing with a little more tempo. And I think the reason for that is you look at the way that these guys play, the way Ben plays and the way Nolan plays. Nolan, obviously, Jordy Fernandez says all these guys have a superpower. Nolan Troy's superpower is his speed, his first step, his ability to be a blur in transition, and then in the half court, turn the corner on screens, blow bys, and get downhill. When you play with that type of speed, you don't necessarily have to have as much craft out of the gate early on in your career. And a guy like Ben Saraf, who has a really crafty handle, can create advantages, but does it differently, doesn't do it with that explosive first step necessarily, or like that blazing speed, has to play with a little bit more craft, a little bit more of an in-between game. And I think that shows up in the decision-making and, the passing. I think that Ben looks just a little more comfortable with the added size, the added, pace that he plays with, going slow to fast, fast to slow. I think, you see that. You see Ben get into the lane. You see the decels. You see him have that extra time to be able to read the defense and be a little bit more comfortable with that, being a little bit of a bigger guy. And for Nolan, I think he's going at one speed and necessarily doesn't give yourself as much time to, make decisions and be a passer and all those things. Still a good passer. And I think still a very encouraging player. I think just in the early going, I think Ben has numerous areas where he looks a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more NBA ready right now. And early on, I just right now, I'm not sure if Yegor Domit is going to be ready for that regular season opener. So Ben Saraf could be the starting point guard for this team come opening night. And I think that, he has a lot of aspects to his game that I think are going to be fun to watch for fans and I think are going to be encouraging, and I think the 3-point shooting, I asked Ben after the game, the areas that he needs to improve. And he said 3-point shooting, outside shooting was number one. He said defense. He said some other things offensively, but, the 3-point shooting, I think will hinder him a little bit out of the game in terms of, NBA level defenders just going under screens, daring him to shoot, doing some of those things. But honestly, Ben getting up a lot of threes off the dribble, Ben, challenging those defenders with his 3-point shot, whether or not they go in, is going to be a positive early on for his development. So we'll see. We got 2.5 weeks. We got a couple more Nets preseason games in China before they close it out in Toronto. And I think that there will be a lot more Ben Saraf tape and a lot more, to monitor before that regular season opener. There's 2 roster battles that are really sticking out, at Nets training camp. The first was that point guard position with the 3 Nets rookies. And the next one was the bottom of the roster, the battle for the Nets final roster spot. There were a few guys that were going to be involved. Tyrese Martin, the non-guaranteed guys, Tyrese Martin, Jalen Wilson, Drew Timme. And I think also Dariq Whitehead is in that conversation as a player who, just 2023 first round pick, but up to this point hasn't been able to show that much due to injuries and a bunch of other things slowing that down, slowing his development down. And you look at Tyrese Martin in this one, we've heard the buzz about him. We heard from Michael Porter Jr. the other day that Tyrese has been the most impressive player at Nets training camp to him. We heard several other players bring up his name unprompted as a standout. I asked Jordy Fernandez about him at Nets practice on Friday, and Jordy was just highly complimentary of the work that Tyrese has done. And you look at his rotations in this game, and Tyrese Martin, of these guys battling for the Nets final roster spot, was, had the most expansive role by far.